Fancy intro music, yeah! Woo!
There's
Hello.
Eco, and now DJ. Where you at? He's being called. DJ. He literally just sent me a message saying ready, and now I'm calling him, and he's not answering.
It might not be ringing.
Yeah, it is a group
It
chat.
might just be in there. Yeah.
There he is. Is that the cat? Meow?
Is that the handsome cat?
Ah,
There it is.
There he is.
There he is.
hi.
What's
Hi.
up, buddy?
God, you're so loud. Let me turn the volume.
Sorry. My bad. Jeez. Just
God,
excited
why
to
all the
see
yelling?
you, and I get yelled at right away. Okay.
Love it. I love
Why
the
all the
energy.
yelling?
Well, everybody's excited about another Flash Pass, DJ.
Oh, yes. Super pumped about the Flash Pass. Have we told him what's in it yet, Echo?
No, I don't know.
We
what's in
sure
it yet. I
did.
just
If you
told
want to
him it's
repeat it,
coming.
you can.
In it?
You know what's in it?
Yes, because I helped your boy write it.
Oh, well, that's why he didn't give me the details. Did he say you're allowed to tell people what's in it?
No, I'm looking for you to let me tell people what's in
Yeah.
it.
Oh, hold on a second. Let me ask somebody.
Are we all about to ask the same person?
Hey, can we tell people what's gonna be in the Flash Pass yet?
No.
Probably not.
Say, can DJ tell him, and don't mention I'm involved.
Okay,
Ask
listen,
if
people
DJ
aren't
can
that
say.
mad. Nobody's that mad at you, Rev. Promise.
Rev is smooth,
Man.
like butter.
Yeah, we were talking about the first time we ever met. Me, you, DJ, Rev, everyone.
Yeah, and how you were very standoffish to Eco, our first meeting.
Yeah.
He just laughs. Yeah,
You've done a good job. All right. You made me a believer. I believe in you now.
I know, and you've told me that. I was just thinking, I remember like our first meeting, you're like, Eco, we've heard this all before. You're not going to be able to get anything done.
I mean, it's kind of like the fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 17,422.7 times, shame on me.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
that kind of model.
I understand. I get it. I understand. I love making people believers of me. I love being different.
I'm just mad that he blamed me, though, DJ. Like, we were on the show before you came on, and he
I
was
did.
saying I'm the one who was doing all
I
that.
thought
I'm
Rev
like,
and you both didn't believe in me, and I forgot that Rev actually was the one who was
I'm
super
over here
supportive.
talking DJ off a cliff. Like, man, hey, it sounds okay.
He was. Rev was a true believer. He
And-
earned Echo Bucks before anybody else did.
And look,
I was actually just asking Rev, because I know that you have your big segment, so I'm not going to ask you if you don't want to share. Rev's thoughts on the past month.
oh, well, my big segment. What do you mean? The video?
No, DJ has a big segment. I know you also
okay.
have a video, so you don't need to give all of your details.
He wants me to grade the arc early. I'm not prepared to do that yet.
No,
I'll tell
don't
you
have
though.
to. No, I won't. I'm not.
I'll tell you though. I do feel generally pretty good about the arc. I feel great about what the arc runner was able to do with event store loot.
Mm-hmm.
Rev, as we published on the pod yesterday, this has officially taken the champion's role here. It's got the crown as the #1 best paying free to play event store. And it was funny. I even mentioned yours and my conversation on your Twitch the other night, how some players looked at the first impression of this month and weren't really feeling it.
Mhm.
But Scopely, this arc runner, I'm gonna single him out. This arc runner did a very, very good job at reacting and pivoting and making some really, really good changes throughout the month. And as it turns out, Rev, by over 40,000, it was like 46 or 48,000 loot,
Yeah.
actually does become the #1 best paying free to play event store of all time, surpassing even that of December 2020. So I feel very, very good about that. I feel very, very good about the selection that was in the event store. I do have the unpopular opinion that I am not as offended by the Strike Team and by the Mantis PvP capabilities as I know a lot of other players are. But overall, I like the dynamic that they bring. But they are stupidly powerful, which means Scopely is going to have to react to those sooner than later. but I do like the dynamic that they bring. So yeah, no, truthfully, and Rev, one of the big things for me, because I'm a super nerd, technical implementation. I feel like I say this month after month after month, but this arc runner double checked his work. This arc runner double checked scoring every day before they went live. I can think of only maybe 1 or 2 events where we had to actually escalate a scoring problem, and there were something like 113 event cards this month, and 2 or 3. That's an A. That's a 99% in any classroom. So I feel like he did a very, very good job in double checking his work. He did a very, very good job with implementation, with reaction to. I feel like he did a very, very good job. I still have some issues with the game design portion of this month, but that's not on him. So I feel like he did a fantastic job, and I'm really, really warm to this arc.
Yeah, what about the communication part, DJ?
Yeah, the community manager did fine too. Yeah, community manager did good too. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just messing with you. Rev thumbs me down.
For me, it's I think the further away I get from this month, the more I'm able to like it and appreciate it. I think a lot of it for a lot of people, DJs, will come down to what we talked about last time we were here together, is some people can't get past the initial reaction, right? And some people are just going to say it's trash because of that. But we're a day after, and I'm sitting here where really for me, content-wise, you should really ask yourself the question, if this month happened again, would I be okay with that? That should be like the baseline for passing, like a C grade. And if this month happened again, it's hard for me to say it was bad because it ended up being, hell, I'm sitting here, I think I took 2 days off, DJ, and I still almost have 700,000 event store currency. At the end of the day, yes, we still had some complaints. You and I both brought to them, hey, Strike Team Uno wasn't fully sourced as we were told she would be, et cetera. And then we have...
Yeah, let's talk about that, Echo. Yeah. Let's talk about that.
So there are some elements...
I literally pinged the person in charge of that, and we'll have more information tomorrow.
So there are elements that still bring me a level of frustration. Like I can't get anywhere close to an A grade, but I can say that when I was in the first week of this month, I had a very firm in-stone F, and I don't have that now. So
I think speaking to Echo's point a minute ago, there was good communication. I'm not taking anything away from that, but let's look at what was contained within that communication this month, Rev 2. We got the Refinery upgrade, which I know left some players wanting more, and I'm never going to say I don't want more, but the Refinery upgrade I think was better than anything we've had over the last 2 years.
Well, that's definitely not debatable. So
it's paying out more, and I've seen some screenshots. Obviously, there's some really great RNG that's happening. Because you got to think, even if the smaller amount was doubled, right? But that also means that the larger RNG chance was doubled, and I'm seeing a lot of people wind up with pulls of like 100+ materials. And I think that's a good thing, because it certainly wasn't that before. So, double a little is still a little, is what a lot of players say, but it's not turning out to be so little. It's not turning out to be quite so little for some players. And I think when you take the 30-day average, which is something that we're working on over at Teaching Trek, going to actually take the refineries and go full 30 days. Let's see what it's actually paying out here in 2022. Because the last time we did this research, Rev, was 2019.
Yeah.
So we'll do that, 30-day averages, and just see how it breaks out. And if players are maybe overlooking it because it's not like a, right up in your face quantity amount. And that's what I want to try to do. Is see, okay, how many materials are you actually getting from this refinery over the course of 30 days? I bet the number is going to surprise some folks. So I'm looking forward to that. I like the refinery update.
Now, we'll say, DJ, I was very, very surprised that I was the first one to come to Eco about this, unless you did it privately. You didn't go and tell them about the bonus refinery still having the old table.
Oh, no.
At least I didn't see you do it publicly. That's why I was saying. Like, I was surprised by that because I went to Eco about it.
Yeah, I don't share DMs with people, Rev.
I don't know.
DMs they stay between us.
No, that's fine. I was just saying, usually DJs in our dev chat is what I meant. So.
Yeah, and I don't remember if that was something that happened there or if it was in a private conversation or maybe it was a piece of another conversation that Echo and I were having. But obviously that was asked. And, ultimately we found out that it hasn't been adjusted at this point. But I look forward to hopefully seeing that is something that could be done over the next couple of months, perhaps. So, especially now that bonus refineries are going to happen with a little bit more frequency, I think that would be a nice thing to look at. But all things considered, I do feel pretty good about the ARC. I don't know, it's certainly not an A+ for me, but I do feel very, very good about it. And we'll deliver our final grade this coming Wednesday.
I'm really
Make sure to tune into tune into DJ's podcast for when that happens. On what day is that happening, DJ?
We'll do this one on Wednesday.
When's your video on the grades coming out?
Tomorrow.
And here's the thing though, and I'm gonna do this. This is my paw in the sand here though, Echo. Okay. I am super adamant. Now you and I had a conversation about this, and I'll share a detail or two if I may. Okay, buddy, I'm coming. It's time for Oliver DJ's bedtime. One of the things that we talked about, and I apologize for hijacking this piece of it, Rev, but I feel like it needs to be said. At the beginning of the month, pre-ARC, all right, the content creation and the moderation team was given information about the sourcing of Strike Team. Now, I know that you say that information is going to come, and I know that I've relayed to you privately, Echo, how the community at large feels about this, but let's formalize this in a public setting. The miscommunication that happened, while understandable, okay, with terminology and this and that, is still information that was provided by agents of Scopely, by us, all right, representing this product. And moreover, that information provided to us by an agent of Scopely. I feel like Scopely has a responsibility, truthfully, all right, to make sure, to make sure it should have been caught on day 1 or day 2 or even pre-ARC. When you guys are looking at content and saying, oh, wait, maybe this is not what we meant, not on day 18. You know what I'm saying? So I am going to strongly advocate and a good chunk of points for my monthly grade is going to depend on whether or not you guys fulfill the promise, essentially, that at least one of these officers was going to be sourced with the $20 battle pass and 100% completion of events. And here's the thing. It's not that much. Rev, what did we come up with? Is the final count like 5 shards or 3 shards? It's very close.
If you bought the battle pass, I think it was 2. And if you didn't buy it, I think it's 8 or 10.
Well,
and
now, in
Chad's
fairness,
probably going to correct real quick. But
in fairness, they did never say free to play. They did always say the elite track of the battle pass. That's a $20 investment. Okay. Now, I know that fundamentally Rev believes, and I don't disagree, that at least one officer should be a free to play officer. But the promise that was made was a $20 battle pass and 100% completion was going to unlock at least one of these rares. And if you did that, through the elite track of the battle pass, you're still short. I think it was either 3 or 5. I'm not sure. Echo, my proposal to you guys was 8.
Yeah.
All right. Just to blanket it out and show a little good faith. And I think 8 at this point now becomes appropriate because also something that's never happened in the past was that you counted on tickets. All right. We've never walked down that road before because people have a choice when it comes to tickets. So if you're looking at the free to play path plus a $20 battle pass, players would only have had an opportunity to do one of those tickets. So assuming that they chose Strike Team Una or assuming that they chose Strike Team Ortegas, honestly, I feel like 8 is a fair number that is going to help a majority of the community. And honestly, community, in fairness, if you missed it by more than 8, you weren't at 100% anyway. So I think 8 is a fair number.
I sent you a DM on Discord. Take a look at it when you get a minute, okay?
All right.
It's like obviously something we're not going to be able to share here right now, but yeah, just I totally understand and get where you're coming from, DJ. And again, as soon as I have more information on this, I'll be sure to tell everybody. Well, I mean, I'll definitely tell you two so that you can share the news.
Yeah. Secrets
Yay.
don't make friends. Campus runner. If you ever want to be a content creator, get ready for lots of red tape repeatedly.
I've got to take a step back for a second because it's Oliver DJ's bedtime. Do you want to say hi to everybody real quick? Super fast. Tell them how you did at football practice because Rev's audience totally cares.
Hey,
Say how many touchdowns? How many touchdowns did you score?
3.
You told me 2. You told me 2.
I said 3.
Oh, it was 3. All right, 3.
I
and
love
Brad.
how it grows every time. I love that.
Yeah, I know. You ask him in 5 minutes. I scored 6 touchdowns. Now give me $60. Anyway.
Dang, Dad doing touchdowns for dollars over here.
I mean, I was gonna say,
I'm ready
Absolutely.
to suit back up. Good Lord.
Sure. Touchdowns for cash. That's the name of the program over here.
Can I get on board with that too, DJ?
You do cars for kids. We do touchdowns for cash. Okay.
Wow. That escalated quickly.
Yeah. I'll be back in just a moment, guys. Hang on.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, what are your quick thoughts? I know that DJ said a lot, and I saw you nodding a lot with it, so I'm assuming you agree with quite a bit of it.
Quick thoughts on which? Because DJ, as he's known to do in our dev room, like DJ gets all of his thoughts on all topics out at once, and I typically go, okay, here's this point. Let's talk about this point.
Well, all right. So So the thing that was the biggest success of this arc. Let's start with the good. No, opposite. The thing that was the biggest failure for you this arc.
The biggest failure?
Yeah. The thing that the team can improve on the most. We should always be working on improving.
Okay.
Right? Like, this should be an open conversation. If something didn't work, like, let's have a talk about it.
Yeah, sure.
We're being very objective. We're being very cordial here. Like, let's talk about it.
I think the worst thing is the easiest thing to fix because it just goes back to how things were in the beginning, which is every piece of content, like a feature that comes out, has a free-to-play path announced. Within, not even necessarily has to have, hey, at 30 days you're getting it, but the knowledge of that, and that's just how it was for basically everything we've ever done.
Right.
With a couple of exceptions, and I will acknowledge that there are exceptions to that, but the exceptions are the minority, not the majority. To me, that's the biggest thing. Early communication.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I totally understand your feelings on that. And the reason I kept coming out and saying, like, there will be a free-to-play path for the Mantis is because it wasn't an afterthought, this path, right? Like, the team has been very conscious of, like, trying to always make sure that there is one worked into each piece of content that comes out. The one that is being discussed right now has a little bit more tech surrounding it. Mm-hmm. So we don't want the people that are involved with it don't want to tell everyone something, have them be like, okay, this is what's going to be, plan around it, and then shift at the last moment because it turns out it couldn't be done.
I get that. And we've had, you and I have talked about it. And I understand
we've talked about it.
But I think this goes back to the previous point. At the end of the day, and I don't mean this like aggressively, but one, that's not the player's fault, so they don't care what the reasons things are. And two, you can't just leave it blank in the air with we'll get around to telling you when we have more information. It's like, hey, look, the original way that maybe we were going to do something, we had to change course because of this, but you are still going to get it. We expect to have an official announcement within 60 days, whatever it is, and actually have a defined piece about this instead of just like, oh, content creators, tell them that you heard that we'll tell them by December. Things that just, and that's why I called it a communication error. I don't expect people in 30 days to get the brand new feature. That's never how it's really worked here, with a couple of exceptions, those exceptions being the minority. But typically always have a set, this is how we're going to do things, even if it's 60, 90 days from now.
Okay. I think that is a totally fair point of feedback and something that I can absolutely have discussions with people about, especially for, future stuff that comes up.
That would be my worst. Like, and that's what, when we were talking about grading the arc, that first week, that was part of my F grade. Like, not only was it the content scaring the bejesus out of players, 30 through 60, but it's also the communication just fell flat that first week. And I feel like things got a lot better, but that's just can people move past that point when they do their grading? And we'll see in the comment section of the video and in DJ's live chat on Wednesday.
All right. What's a good thing that happened?
I probably shouldn't say this because it might be a little bit too much behind the scenes, but as far as this month's Arc Runner, and I'll tell the community this because obviously they don't know who it is, but the amount of time that they put in individually in this past month is hands down one of the most dedicated and time intensive Arc Runners that I've seen since being a content creator. And while that's not something I can really take to the community and have them be like, oh, golly, that sounds great, because they have no idea who that person is. But seeing it from this side of them literally being 10, 11 o'clock at night and responding to messages and working on points and then coming up the next morning way before Eco wakes his ass up and being available to community. I mean, the amount of time, and I think that's why this month, event-wise, went so well, because of their dedication to that. And even though it's a behind the scenes thing, it's probably my favorite part of the arc. It actually makes it to where I can't really hate the arc. Like, even if I strongly disagree with the strange tuna and the power creep that I've complained about, all that, it's really hard to tell somebody who worked as hard as they did and did as well as they did and say, hey, it's a fail.
Okay.
I agree with that, by the way. And I've talked about that on the podcast as well. This guy, Rev, and I know you saw the same thing. This guy was putting in 19 and 20-hour days. You know, you talk about him messaging us before Echo wakes up and messaging us, you know, after a normal, you know, clock out. I mean, this guy was solid. I mean, I would imagine, Echo, and you could probably validate this, I would say for the days 2 through 12, maybe 2 through 14, this guy was putting in 18 to 20-hour days. Like,
they were working a shocking amount.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And it was evident, you know, as Rev points out, and as I pointed out earlier, like the events actually popping off and scoring the way that they're supposed to. This arc runner, for all intents and purposes, you take everything else out of this arc, stuff that he was handed from game design or stuff that he was mandated to do, you know, with regards to sourcing or this or that. You put just what the arc runner was responsible for, and you put that in a bucket. He gets an A++, like 2 Paul's up. Absolutely. He exhibited a ridiculous amount of dedication, and especially given the fact that he was essentially rewriting this arc from day 2 forward. He pivoted and changed this arc based on what our expectations were in community. I think that cannot go without saying. A lot of people are going to say, well, it shouldn't have happened that way in the first place. But, you know, that speaks to a problem outside of the arc runner's responsibility. It speaks to a need for like an SOP within live ops and you know, consistency.
That's not on this particular arc runner.
No. This guy designed what he thought was appropriate, which would be that spenders get more. And in a lot of cases, we usually agree with that, but it's just not historical when it comes to an event store. So the fact that he and the team, and, you know, I said this when this came out, Echo and Old Man and, you know, the God King, there were several people.
The God King.
Wow.
The God King, there were several people that agreed with this when the feedback was presented. And the fact that he then took it upon himself, he being the arc runner, took it upon himself to basically rewrite his entire arc. And we know, Rev, how long does it take typically to prepare an arc? It's usually 2 to 3 months to prepare an arc. And he did it on the fly every day.
In addition to that, not only did he go through and not just add events, but keep in mind, because of the state of this being an event store month, events have to be added and rewards have to be changed. But also basic things working that had gotten missed through, like, you know, seeping through the floor before. For example, the away team mission that we had, the event, criticals worked immediately. Hasn't that been a problem? Like 3 away teams missions in a row. That one was not. So not only to have the regular things set in stone working correctly, then had to put in all the work to add the events to make the players happy. That's a big deal to me. Like, it sounds small, but
it's a huge deal.
The biggest complaints I've had. I've been screaming for months about standards and having baseline things just work right. And he did that. And
he did.
The amount of work he did, I definitely can't say he needs to run things every month because he did an insane amount of work, but I am incredibly grateful to the amount of work and the quality of the work that they put in.
He really kind of I don't want to say that he set a standard, because I love a lot of the other arc runners, but he really made it very obvious that he took the time to double and triple check and make sure that milestones were right and make sure that metrics were scoring properly. He did a very, very good job.
I agree.
And whatever help he had, because, you know, this may, I don't know if I should say this or not, but I will. As far as standard operating procedures, Echo, Scopely Live Ops has even made an adjustment that was very obvious this month, and the community may not know, but and Echo's going to PM me now and tell me to shut up, but I think this is praiseworthy. This is something that Ops has reacted to based on our complaints of the past, and there are essentially now 2 arc runners, one that is taking lead, but there is a second arc runner.
Basically got a co-pilot now.
Yeah,
why would I pee my pants about that? Yeah.
Well, it's private information. It's inside information, but I think it demonstrates a really positive step that Scopely themselves have taken to ensure quality. Yeah. And the fact that you put a second set of eyes internally with, you know, a co-pilot arc runner, you know, I think that is absolutely praiseworthy and something the community should know and should be real quick, happy DJ, about.
Just to stop the dissenters who are going to scream. No, previously for 3.5 years, it was not literally one person planning an entire month. There is oversight. There was that. But more to the point of the amount of time that this individual had to spend to make sure things went this way. Moving forward, obviously, if we want that level of quality, the best way is to have multiple people working that instead of one person doing those 14 to 20-hour shifts.
Mm-hmm.
There are, I mean, just going to say, you know, your feedback has been heard, especially over the past few months. And I'm not digging at anybody, right? Like, I've never run an arc. And just from me communicating with people, the amount of time and work it goes in to plan and make event schedules is insane. It's incredibly difficult. Yeah. And I think that something that we talked about a lot with the team and with each arc runner, and I've worked with each of them closely, and I really, really like all of them. But I think something that we all talked about at a couple of times was just, how can we be better, right? How can we ensure that things are going to go smoothly for people when they log into the game, the events reset, and they want to play? And so that is something that we heard a ton of feedback about, and there were conversations about it. And I'm really happy to hear that, you know, I know you guys don't speak for everybody, right? But I'm really glad to hear that it seems like there is a lot of positive feelings about some of the, you know, changes that were made based off of, you know, what everyone was giving us, you know?
And I hope that it continues. I mean, that it would be disappointing if next month came out and we reverted back to the level of broken events at launch and having to fix things and patch things. That would be disappointing. So I think the truer test, I mean, you guys demonstrated this month that you can do it with some structural changes and some cooperation changes inside the department.
And a whole boat ton of hours.
And a lot of hours, you know. Listen, I might even suggest, you know, let's pretend that the loot was distributed, that there wasn't this spender free to play variance at the beginning. I have a feeling that just the level of double checking the event hooks and the scoring metrics and things like that, I bet that was done anyway. I bet he would have done that anyway because he did it, you know, and I know that he did a lot of that, but I also know that there were people that were supporting him and helping him. And I would find it to be highly motivating in this game if this were to become our new normal with regards to quality control when events launch. So, you know, the changes were made, and I hope that you guys continue to prioritize the manpower to continue this level of quality, because this month, from a technical implementation perspective, was probably literally one of the best ever with regards to events working at reset.
Even better than May?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, I could be wrong, but events that were broken at reset was an absolute minimum this month. It's never been this clean.
Yeah.
And I hope
Especially given the
that
number
that
of
continues.
events. Was it you who posted? I think it had to have been you, because very few people have the number tracked. But wasn't it you who posted the actual number of events we had, and then the failures that we had in one way or another? It was
113 events that launched this month, and I can only think of 2 that had scoring problems when they first launched. And truthfully, Rev, both of those were actually just in verbiage of the text. The scoring worked the way that the Arc Runner had intended it, but the text didn't match exactly. Yeah. So it wasn't even an example of a broken hook. It was just maybe, verbiage or lost in translation. But again, still, that is far and away the best implementation month that we've ever had. And I hope that continues, because you do that at its core, players become accustomed to what? You don't think that?
No. What I'm saying is, if you do that, the game could release a minor and we would still be happy. That level of event is what we need.
Rev is right. The amount of technical frustration that has been present in this game over the last 6 months seems to be leading the pack, Echo. When we looked at last month or the month before, for example, despite all of the content, the number one complaint was just playability, especially at event reset. So you guys have been able to address that this month. And I think it needs to be a super high priority moving forward, because that will alleviate a lot of players' frustrations moving forward.
Yeah. And, I asked Rev first, I don't know if you heard this, DJ, for the thing that went wrong, right? The thing that was like the number one thing, like, hey, this should have been better, this is going to be corrected. I don't want just the praise, right? But I do think that giving both sides to the team matters quite a bit. I think it's important to tell people, hey, this can be better, but also this is what people loved. Because if I tell people what we love, we can continue doing it. And people are like, okay, this is something that we get a lot of positive reinforcement from. We need to continue to do that, right? So I always am a big advocate of both sides, especially me personally. I run on gold stars. So if I ever have team members on a team with me, I always make sure to tell them when they do something well, because it's just the psychology of things, right? Like if you only hear bad things all of the time, it's like, what's the point, So I do think.
Are you asking for my bad thing? Are you asking?
Yeah.
For
what's your bad thing?
The good and the bad. Yeah. What's your bad thing?
My bad thing this month is a little bit more broad in scope, and it's just some consistency and historical reverence, so to speak. Like, for example, one of my largest complaints this month was day 1 and day 2. You guys saw how frustrated I was and how passionate I was.
Oh, I remember.
The 30-day shield cap.
I remember, DJ.
Yeah, dude. Rev's right. I've literally never thrown a 30-day shield.
I've never seen you do that before.
I've never done it. Never thrown a 30-day shield, and I did it. I was ready to walk away this month because of what felt like such a grand gesture against the free-to-play and the casual players in this game. So for me, all the credit in the world to the Arc Runner for reacting and pivoting. But I agree with a lot of people who say that this shouldn't have happened to begin with. And while I praise the work that he put in, and I even accept the fact that he may not have known. I mean, this Arc Runner has not been here since global launch. All right, I know I'm not going to say how long he's been here, but he's not a day one Arc Runner. So there is some historical elements here that he couldn't have known about. So for me, that kind of comes back and circles back to standards. Standard operating procedures, kind of within an arc, having a little bit more historical reference, we've talked about the player advisory panel, but, consulting these guys a little bit more, bouncing ideas off, especially, with content that's moving forward as it pertains to loops and things that we have experience with in this game. So my big negative, even though he very, very expertly rebounded here, would just be, man, it would have been great if players didn't feel that on day 1 or day 2, because really there's not a ton in this arc that I have to complain about. Game design elements are going to be something that a lot of people would put at the top of their list with regards to Strike Team or with regards to the Sting. But more than that for me is is something that impacts every single arc, not just the feature this month, but every single arc. If there is a little bit more consistency and a little bit more fact checking and a little bit more, historical attachment to the way that players are used to things in this game. And I'm not suggesting that players should always demand the same thing. Scopely absolutely should be allowed to innovate and try new things and create new things. And I'm totally fine with that. But there are some core elements, for example, with this new loop or with event store currency and with event store payouts that I think just kind of need to be honored. There's some tradition, if you will, attached to an event store. And I would like to see that particular error not repeated in the future. That would be my thing that I think needs a high degree of priority one, is just making sure that we've got a good standard moving forward with the way things introduce. And I think that's very possible.
Hey, Eco, I've got one for you, by the way. I want to hit you with one.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, look, this is a conversation you had, and Sapphire brings it up, so kind of bring it to you real quick about, because we've had this discussion, so I know you have something to say about it. But Sapphire said the biggest complaint they had is that ops below 33 got shorthanded all month and didn't have anything to do. I do think the Arc Runner did a good job to try to adjust some of that, but you and I had talked about the early gameplay, the desire for the game to obviously have people level up, but also just in general, still needing to provide them something. Anything that you want to say about that? About giving people in those ranges, because we're still opening servers.
No, I totally understand, and I do, as a gamer, agree that like there should be things for everybody to do regardless of where their progress is, right? But I'm not a game designer, so I don't want to give too many, like the reason it was done was X, Y, and Z. But I will just say that from my experience, and this could be wrong, from my experiences, having aspirational content or new content come out for further along players is something that it's not normal, but it does happen often. Like if you think about a new expansion for World of Warcraft or a new expansion for other types of like MMOs or strategy games, it's usually like, hey, you have to be X requirement. Yeah. And I'm not saying that this was the right level or why this level was decided upon. And I absolutely agree that there should be something for everybody.
When we had talked,
but again, like what else did we talk about in that? Because I honestly don't even remember the conversation fully. But I totally understand the concern.
Well,
but it's hard. I think it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, because we're in a game that's 4 years in, so we have got players like myself who are already. I'm already started my push to 46-ish. I'm starting that now. DJ's already up in the upper 40s. You got a lot of players who've pushed very far, and obviously those dedicated players need to be rewarded with content. And if you continue to just make content only for lower levels, then that leaves your diehards out to dry with nothing to do. So I definitely get if you're going to make content, make it to where you can grow into. But two sides of the conversation that we had was, one, talking about the economy of lower levels, just to make it more feasible, not only economy for resources, but also officers and ships. And then the second part of that was just making sure that the events, there's always something for them to do every day.
Yep.
Those two things.
Yeah. And people like playing with the new toy. It's just how, things I want to ask about is like, well, how can we get people to be able to into a place to play with the new toy faster? Like, I don't think that there's ever going to be a perfect world where, like, somebody's been playing for a month, new ship comes out, and they're able to access it, right? Like, they still have a bunch of other stuff to go and get. If you're under 33, what are the big ones? It's Franklin.
Well, you still got so yeah, you got Stella. Don't forget your Botany
Bay. All your rare ships from the faction.
If you go for those,
if you go for those, right?
So you got if you just want specialty ships though, you got Botany Bay, Franklin, Devore, then you got the Discovery, Vidar, Stella, Meridian, and then the Amalgams. You have 8 specialty ships below level 32 that you will need to get in the game, and that's just the specialty ships.
And I know that those things aren't as exciting as the brand new thing that comes out. And everyone wants to be able to try the brand new thing. I get that as a gamer. But I think it's always just about balancing making sure people have enough things to do, but still giving people who have been invested in this game for a very long time more things to do. And I know Sapphire wasn't saying like it's not fair that I couldn't access it. That was not their comment at all, and I'm not taking it as that. I just more wanted to give the thought as making sure that there is an understanding that there's a balance to those things, and then talking about, well, how are people getting these things now that we have X amount more content past this point, right? Yeah. And those are conversations that take time, for sure. It's not something where it's like, all right, well, you can get tier 10 Vidar by the time you're 32, no problem, go grind for a week. It's not going to be something like that. But
did you just say tier 10?
Sure did.
It's a 3-star joke.
I know it only goes to tier 9. It was just a joke.
I just heard 4-star Vidar A confirmed. That's what I heard.
No,
that's what I heard.
You didn't.
That's what I heard.
Absolutely not. It was a joke. It was me embellishing. My bad. I should never ever do that ever again. Thank you, Rev, for reminding me to never embellish.
With regard to targeting content, this month could almost be considered an exception because you did have a phenomenal event store month. But, you go back and I remember specifically one that I was very fussy about was the month that Cloaking came out. Or the month that Amalgam came out. And those were not event store months. And those were months where a lot of the events and a lot of the features and everything really kind of geared around that actual feature.
Yeah.
And maybe we can time it better. Like we did with this month. I'm sorry to cut you off, DJ, but like if we're going to have a piece of content that like, hey, like this is an aspirational piece. It's for people that are been around for a while. This is something that like you're growing into, like when you get G4, right? If we're releasing that alongside of an event store, or we're doing something like, this is coming out, but these other things are going to be there so that people under X still have stuff to do.
Here's an idea for that, Eco. It just goes to your side for communication. Some games, when new content comes out, granted we're talking an every month game, whereas a lot of games do it, once a quarter. Having a small like Q&A/video with maybe one of the designers talking about the vision of that feature to let people have a little bit more information. Like, why did we choose to make it to where the Manus is a level 33 ship? Giving a little peek behind the curtain and letting people see the process. Maybe not only to incentivize them to get there or excite them, but to also just, again, as I really push you on, is just making the company more personable so people can see the faces behind the screens and see that some of them actually watch Star Trek.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that our first attempt at that was with episode 1 of the Captain's Log. Mm-hmm. And that is something that myself and my team are trying to do every month. I've already been reaching out to people. I asked Old Man multiple times if he would hop on, and he just...
Old Man's been promising me for 2 years.
Yeah, I'm in that same boat.
Old Man literally ghosted me every time I asked him. He responded to like 2 things and didn't respond to that one.
Like I've got so many screenshots of promises.
I am already asking people if they want to be included in these episodes of the Captain's Log. I want to give more insight into why we did things. Why was this done? Who are you as a person? Like, I had no idea David E. was like accepted to law school before he started working on video games. Like, that's a cool thing people should know about the team working here, right? Like, I feel like you guys know a lot about me just because I am always around and I talk a lot, right? And I'm super open and share a bunch. But I think I totally agree with you. I think that having more information, like, hey, this is the feature breakdown. We made it like this for these reasons. Yeah. So at least people that maybe don't have access to it, though, can be like, okay, I understand at least why they did it. It's like when mom and dad tell you, no, you can't go on that sleepover, and they don't give you a reason why.
Yeah, if you don't give them a reason, we're going to make up a reason. So
yeah, here are the 10 reasons why you can't go on the sleepover. It's in a bad part of town. It's at night. I don't want you going out over there. Well, I'm not going to go out. Yes, you will. You're a kid. Like, let's be honest here.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like, so if Scopa doesn't say, hey, this is why we did this month, then it's going to be really easy for the players to just fill in that slot right there with Scopely hates me. It costs $100. So if you give them a reason, then they can't come back with that.
There were a couple things that DJ even said. He's like, oh, I know why they made the cargo this way. And then I got back to him like, DJ, this is actually the reason why.
Anyway, okay, moving on.
Still believe me?
Oh, God.
I mean, listen, I am proud of the changes that you guys made. All right. But yeah, I do. I do wonder about what the original intent of that was. But again, at this point, it doesn't matter. Changes were made. Players were largely satisfied by that change. And that's ultimately what matters. That is what I feel the role of even you, Echo, and of Rev and myself and the other creation team is to advocate for positive change that players can be happy with, regardless of what Scopely thought that they wanted with something. We got something released that was better. And I think that was a good pivot. Moving back to moving back to content that could be potentially paywalled, Rev, and this is a kind of a little bit of a think tank project that I've been with a handful of us, but we go back and we see some examples of this, like with Anthology, or if we go back to the April of 2020 arc, Rev. You remember when they did like the terror skin? Actually, it might have been April 21. The terror skin and the Vidar and like they had 3 like mini arcs placed in one.
Yeah,
this is absolutely a big venture, Echo. And to be perfectly fair to all parties, I have not approached Echo with this idea. I wasn't really prepared to pitch it yet, but since we're talking about it, it really fits very well.
Mm-hmm.
When we're talking about the concept of sub events, like we did this month, when there was an when there was an event for the Mantis. On one of these days, the Arc Runner subbed in one of the old Plunders of War events. All right. It had a totally different objective, different scoring. It still paid the loot, but it was a substitute event that gave a different objective from the Mantis. So when we're talking about a player who's joined the game in the last 6 to 12 months, and we're talking about 8 specialty ships.
Yeah.
Right. How about, and I don't know if this is probably a 6-month or better plan down the road, but I've been kind of building on the idea of an arc within the arc. All right, you've got your arc for the advanced players, the people who are pushing for new content, pushing towards Ops 33, Ops 35, Ops 40. You got that type of content with the new feature that is pushing players in that direction. But when you have a month with a feature that is benchmarked, for example, at Ops 33, what are the feasible constraints with going back and saying, okay, these substitute events for you this month are actually going to focus around Vidar, okay? Yeah. Or these sub-events are actually going to focus around the Amalgam or the Cerritos.
And are you saying events that have already run in the past?
Not just events, but additional assistance with fast-tracking that. Right? And so, for example, Cosmic Cleanup, great example of ways to catch up on content. But as we add more loops, and we've talked about this, as we add more loops, the older ones need to keep up a little bit better. What better way to do that than in a month right here, the Mantis, where you've got Ops 33. Let's go back and make the substitute events all about sourcing Stella stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, give those players who are behind, who are trying to catch up, give them an actual jolt in the arm all about Franklin, original Franklin, and just dump boatloads of modulators in those types of events. There are ways with substitute event mechanics that you could choose an area.
Yeah.
I mean,
be a arc for the player who might have missed out on that content. Instead of just plain out hostile hunts. I
mean, I love it because look, DJ, just this past month, you and I had a big discussion about the need to quicken the progression for all the specialty ships. I know I've talked to leader of the Oak Ridge Boys, Eco here, same thing. And I think that's a great way to do it without having too much change based on what we've seen them do this month.
Yeah,
and it's not a new model. I mean, every time the Return of the Mega Cube runs, there's So how about those sub-events actually award, I don't know, 30, 40% of the BPs needed for that Vidar? I mean, if that player has that event, they don't have the Vidar. So the substitute events could be retuned to give that player a shot in the arm at progression to catching up to what the event needs to be. And again, the reason I suggest, Rev, it probably takes a lot of months is because there are clocks and there are project owners. You know, somebody's going to say, well, the Vidar should still take 10 months to source, and should it, so there's going to be some planning that's involved, and more along the lines with that, you're going to have to coordinate with the ARC runner to say, okay,
Big
when we're going, it's a big conversation, and I don't expect it to happen next month, but I think that Rev, in addition to Cosmic Cleanup, which, all right, but you could do more if you're trying to get these players caught up and doing sub events, in a month where there is aspirational content, Echo, as you call it, then providing those sub events that can even be some.
Well, say I like, and DJ, you're breaking up a little bit. So
that prequel. Sorry.
Breaking up a bit, so I want to jump in. But they've already done that with one ship in the game permanently when they did the Devore update. We had the feature run out, they upgraded, or they provided a mission level 23 that now pays out Devore shards every Monday. So you already have a sub event that's on the calendar forever that they've put in. And then you have I don't know if I call it a sub event, but it kind of is. It's its own separate event, the California class. You've seen it with two things so far. And if you actually add this as a mechanic where you rotated it for the ships that don't have so Mining Monday's easy. It has a natural day that it just falls into. But for the ships that don't naturally have that, having this in is just part of a random month and adding that into your SOP to use the, anagram you like to use would be an easy way to do something of what they're already doing.
I mean, I think it's a very, very well thought out idea. And it's just like you said, DJ, it's something that I don't expect to be happening in next month, but I definitely think that is something I can bring up with the team and see if that's something that we can do. I mean, like you said, you saw how much time it goes into creating an arc. And if we're going to look into making a sub arc while creating a arc, what kind of resources are we talking about? How much time is this going to take? So,
it could also
I definitely think that it's a very, very well thought out idea and something I'm more than happy to ask about and see what sort of possibilities that can raise.
It's also something you could possibly build into the Flash Pass that we're talking about doing. Just make that week a week dedicated to that particular ship for that month, or make it optional where it's simply a Flash Pass is an accelerated cosmic cleanup for some.
Flash Pass I see being hard because, if it's about for something that some people already have, and I don't think it's we can make 6 or 7 different Flash Passes, right?
Well, no, I'm not saying put it in the Flash Pass. I'm saying that week. We're talking about sub events.
Oh, yes.
Using the sub events in that during the Flash Pass. That way we know, hey, Flash Pass.
My bad.
Yeah,
I misunderstood.
Yeah, no worries. So not actually throwing things into a BP, but having that week as, hey, this is the week to reward those who want to stay in the gameplay, not take the week off, which is what a lot of those break weeks have been. And then, hey, we're going to reward you and provide you more so you can catch up for the next big content we have coming up in the month.
Yep. Totally understand.
DJ, you back, or are you still...
Yeah, no, I'm here, and I think that's a good sum up, and I agree with you, Echo. Like I said, I'm blindsiding you with this, and it's a project that I have kind of been writing up, so to speak. And
ask me my opinion on something else,
hey,
DJ.
He didn't come in and say you needed to do it.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, totally but honestly, and you're right. I mean, with a 3-month lead time on arcs, this is not something that can happen within the next. Sure. Even 120 days. It's not going to happen within 4 months. But I think it would be a very welcome thing, especially for new players coming into the game. And let's face it, Echo, still to this day, you have new people downloading this game every day.
A lot.
How cool is that? How cool is that? Can we just take a minute to it's been 4 years.
It's very cool. But there has to be procedures in place that assist those players, because we can also all agree that this game, if you downloaded it for the first time today, ask Beck, it's a very overwhelming game. So
I experienced it literally 3 months ago.
Yeah, it's a very overwhelming game. But now look at you. You're a perfect example. 3 months ago, you started. What's your ops level today?
35.
35, which is crazy in and of itself, but good on you.
I started in April, so it's actually been 5 months.
So 4 months, 5 months, 4 months, whatever, you have made to ops 35. Now, without a great deal of spend, if you were relying on Cosmic Cleanup, you would only just now be working on your second ship.
Yeah. With
You
the
see what I'm
exception
saying?
of he would have had
Yeah,
two
no, I
events
totally understand what you're
stores.
saying.
And so if you found a way, I mean, listen, a simple thing to do would just be, you know, hey, award 300 tokens instead of 100 in Cosmic Cleanup. Give players a little bit of a jolt in that regard. But that's a simple, unimaginative way to do it. If you really wanted to create some extra engagement and things like that, you could offer these types of events. And like I said, you're right. Designing an arc within an arc is a huge process, and putting already, you know, strained resources on top of an arc runner who's already working 20-hour days. So I get it. It's a long conversation to have, but it does solve a lot of problems. And we're seeing right here, Scopely, economy-wise, has made it possible for you to get to your 30s within 3 to 4 months.
Yeah,
but
you can do
that
0
is
to
going
34 in 6 months.
Man, you're
realistic.
calling me out, DJ. You made me just tell everybody that I'm spending money over here. Listen, I have to catch up. If I don't catch up, I'm not going to know what I'm talking about. No one's going to respect me.
I don't think that you're spending gobs of money, though. I mean, Bubba and I were talking about this on the show the other day. I mean, you could legitimately, within 90 days, be level 30 in this game. You could do it. All right.
You have to know exactly what you're looking for, though.
Well, and that's kind of my point. If we simplify that entry-level process, you're going to be helping multiple generations of players into this game and giving yourself more retainability, more sustainability with those early-level players if they can feel some real tangible progress and not go 2 years feeling like they're behind, which ultimately comes back to my discussion we had yesterday, Rev, about the strike team officers. You know, because it does come full circle, because I feel, and this was very unpopular, but Rev, I feel like the strike team can be a good thing because for the same reason that you don't like it, right? Like you said that it kind of invalidates previous investments into officers, right? Like Honor Guard Worf, like Khan, like Sharvanek and Marcus. And to a certain extent, I agree that it can do that with at least one ship at a time, but a lot of people will fly more than one a lot of times with PvP, but neither that here nor there. If you provide the strike team, right, and it's available now to a player who's been in the game 6 months or 8 months, it does, in my opinion, kind of actually close that gap a little bit to somebody who's been here 3 years, you know, because is it really fair or is it appropriate that a player who joins the game in the last 6 months is just forever with no regard to what they could spend or how they grind or whatever they do in this game? Is it appropriate for that player to just always be inferior?
I guess that's tricky.
When I got my, just before you say that, just to add to that point, when I got Honor Guard Worf, I was so excited. I told a couple of people in the Discord, and they laughed at me. They're like, "What tier is he?" I'm like, "1, I just got him." They're like, "He's not going to do anything for you until tier 3."
Baloney.
What? He's good at tier 1. Who said that?
No. It wasn't.
Baloney.
It wasn't HCW. It was Gore, purple officer for Whole Breach.
Yeah,
Gorkon. Yeah, they're like, he's not going to do anything for you until tier 3.
You know, I don't know that I agree with that 100% either.
No,
you know, I mean,
anyways,
obviously,
it's like I'm constantly playing catch up with officers, right?
I think the tricky part of it is, because I agree with DJ to an extent, but part of my issue with it is the fact that a lot of this new content we're talking about, new officers we're talking about, aren't sourceable by players anyway that are in that lower tier. So if the potential fix is to have that provided earlier on, which helps all the new players, which is fine. Well, you've got what? Your lower decks officers is 36. You're going to assume the strike team is tied to the Manus, so that would be 33 in your refinery if they get added there. It's still providing a big gap and giving it to the players who, and then by your argument, already had all this stuff versus now lower levels who have to upgrade the original stuff and then get new stuff. So if we want that argument, then we just need to extend that sourcing.
Well, I agree with that to a certain extent, but we have also agreed that within only months in this game, someone could be 33. You know, if they're dedicated to it and if they're grindy enough.
They're going to be missing ships. They're going to be missing officers. And that becomes kind of our problem that we talk about. You know, it's just like, is it worth flying that fast to have nothing, or is it better to be good and efficient at your level as you go up? And that's that tricky.
And I agree with that. But that's why I think these officers may be a little bit of a blessing in disguise, especially for younger ops level players. You know, and I know this is not the right content. If you're going to use this as kind of a balancing effect or a reset button, then you can't paywall them. Okay. But by the same token, you know, Rev, this gives a player who's been in the game 6 or 8 months, who is just now Ops 33, this actually gives them a little bit of an equalizing factor against that player who's a 35 or a 36 who has been in the game for 2 or 3 years, because that player who's been in the game for 3 years is going to have mountains of research beyond this player. They're going to have mountains of officer development beyond this player. So these new officers, I think, when they do become available, and that's a very big, important statement here, Echo, they've got to become available sooner than later, but they do provide a little bit of that leveling effect for newer players to actually be able to play with experienced players and still have a little bit of a chance, you know? And that's why I'm not horribly offended by these guys.
Well, I think that this is like the perfect example of why it's hard to make a video game, right? Like both the things you're bringing up, both topics, you and Rev, and
trust me, Echo, my position is not shared universally. Okay,
well, I know it's not. I know it's not, but also the people that do agree with you also might not be the ones that are speaking up as much, right? I just think that there are two. Like this is a perfect example of there are two sides to every coin, and being able to perfectly make something for a game that is trying to always do new things and have new stuff for everybody every month can be challenging, right?
Well, I hope nobody would come out and say, "Oh, Scopely's job's easy." I definitely am never trying to come across with that argument that, "Hey, just make this fix, idiots. It's simple." But at the same time, you know, I think it's just we have so many of these things.
Pretty sure that was your last video, wasn't it, Rev? The title was "Make This Fix, Idiot. It's this simple."
Yes, it was actually.
I'm sorry. Continue. No. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. I apologize.
But it's just, you know, at the same time, like it can't feel like things come out piecemeal either. It can't take a year to reset all these things if this is supposed to be the new fresh. And this goes back to what you and I know this isn't your fault. It's just something me and DJ are harping on. You know, you look at the Strange New World crew coming out. I do love that they have an early, you can source them reasonably low level. But you look at Jean-Luc Picard when TNG came out 14 months ago, he's still not available in the game today. Even if he came out, you know, in a month or 2 months, whatever, it still would have taken a year and a half to source something that is now not even that effective, because even in the beginning, he really needed to be a high tier to be surpassing Pike Monroe Chin. So it's just, if we're going through this process, there has to be a universal standard that keeps everything moving forward. And I mean everything moving forward. It can't just be a singular economy update. It has to also be an officer update. It has to also be a mechanic update for everybody. And that's the tricky thing, is if you're going to do Strange Tuna and Strike Team Law and everything, great, but now who's getting access to it? As DJ said, if you're resetting something, it shouldn't have a forced paywall on everybody. If we're going to progress, then we need to actually let the progression happen.
I think this is a really awesome conversation.
And as a super side piece, as I'm getting ready to have to bounce, Rev. But
same.
One other little, maybe minor suggestion that I would have made if you wanted to improve the balance with Strike Team coming out, you know, you have already indicated that there are going to be Interceptor and Explorer crews, you know, that come out with Strike Team.
There will
be. The concern that players have is how long, you know, is it going to take for that new balance to present itself in the game? Because right now, listen, let's face it, for Battleship owners, this is the new standard. Okay, like there's no way around that. So how long does it take for that to come out? And if you can't answer that, okay, which I'm sure you cannot, but a note for the future, if you're going to look at ship sets like this, it might, you know, because obviously you can't release 9 officers in a month. So it might have been appropriate to release 1 officer from each set in this month. That way you're building towards the next amazing crew set, but you're building universally. Yeah. You're building so that everybody can maintain a sense of progress with these officers and not feel left out if they chose to invest in the Enterprise or if they chose to invest in the D4, for example. This month, releasing 1 battleship officer and 1 interceptor officer and 1 explorer officer probably would have helped alleviate some of that concern. And then you've got a multi-month step towards building and resetting this PvP meta, so to speak, without necessarily invalidating somebody's prior choices in this game.
I totally think that's a very great idea and something I'm happy to bring up. And again, I don't know why the decisions were made and like the context, so I don't want to give that. I'm sure that there is a reason, right? But Wild Targ, again, I think your point is great. But Wild Targ brought up a good point and said that assumes they're all Strange New Worlds officers.
Well, I don't think
because everybody knew that this month was the last part 3, the final part of Strange New Worlds, right? That might make things trickier. And maybe that's just a larger like planning question. Like, okay, well, we're going to do this. Let's make sure it's done during, again, I'm just throwing something out, a 4-month-long arc, right? Or at the start of a 3-month arc, right?
And I think that would have probably been received a little bit more positively. I mean, really, let's be honest. My impression of this is that these officers probably weren't narratively supposed to be released with Strange New Worlds. Strange New Worlds has been all about PvE. Like every other officer, every other piece of this loop has been around PvE. So to, in 1 month, introduce a crew that, for all intents and purposes, disrupts the meta, or it imbalances the meta of existence as far as battle in this game. It doesn't really feel like it belonged here anyway. I even remember saying to you, Echo, like it didn't.
Yeah, I remember day one. Day one.
It doesn't narratively make sense to re-release officers that are a month or 2 old in this game. So if narratively speaking, I have no idea what's planned for Deep Space Nine, but if you had 3 crews that came out in Deep Space Nine that were focused on PvP. Something I heard a rumor. And Deep Space Nine narratively, I mean, the cornerstone of that series is a war. So it narratively, I don't know that it would have been wildly inappropriate to hold on these officers. Wild Targ says that would assume that they're all supposed to be Strike Team or all supposed to be Strange New Worlds. What if they weren't? And that just requires a little bit of planning. You know what I'm saying?
We've already seen that they'll change the abilities of officers if needed. I mean, I'm with you. If you're going to do it in a quick fell swoop, or at least do it in a rollout that makes it fair to everybody. And I do like, by the way, that somebody brought up that Deep Space Nine having a strike team of Ferengi would be extremely canon. And to use DJ's word of the month last month, fit thematically with what we're going for here. I would love that.
No, I think these are great points. I did want to say, DJ, because I told Rev this earlier, I have from a very reliable source that they found a counter to tuna.
I'm curious the tuna counter. La'an, I know.
I am too.
I'm curious a tuna counter.
I am too. And I asked them, what's the crew? And they wouldn't even tell me the crew. I'm like, I won't tell anybody. And they're like, no, we still need to do testing.
Well,
but
here's the thing.
Very reliable source that there is a crew.
Here's the thing. I've heard the same. And if it was a counter, it's going to have to be in an indirect fashion, because there's literally no officers in the game that will prevent a shield ignore. Right. So obviously I'm not opposed to creative thinking and critical thinking with crewing. I very much like that.
That's what I love about it. That's why you heard me say at the very beginning of all this, like, it's too soon to tell.
Well, but
people figure things out.
I know, Echo, but listen, you've had your best and your brightest minds on this for 20 days, and there's not a counter that I have found, not one that actually counters why she is so potent.
Literally,
if you have one that increases damage output, so much so that you don't have to go 4 rounds, so be it. But here's the thing. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. In round 4, you are 100% hull damage. You're done.
I mean,
there's no counter for that.
I'm just going to say this. And then Rev, no, go ahead, Rev. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's fine. I'm just, to his point, that's just the strength of what she is, because she's cumulative.
Yeah.
There's no way to... Just like there was no counter ever to Harrison. Like if somebody ran Pipe Row Harrison, well, that round you've got no shields. That just is how it is. You can't stop that. So there is no counter in the game for that ability, but you can work around that. You could max out your mitigation, and you can run various damage builds, and you can run whole lengthening builds, but those aren't counters as much as they are workarounds. So I'm curious counter.
I guess it's not right. It's not a counter. I shouldn't say counter. I don't think that's ever a good word. It is a way to combat it, right? I'm just going to give and I know you said, DJ, your best and brightest minds for 20 days. And I've said this a couple of times, but StarCraft is a game that's very, very near and dear to my heart. So I'm going to give a little bit of StarCraft lore here. For, I think, a year, it was 6 months to a year, everybody said that PvZ, it's impossible to beat Zerg as Protoss. Not possible. Can't be done, right? It's so imbalanced. There's nothing we can do. And this is when the game was done being devved, right? Like, it wasn't being balance updated anymore. It was done. And then one player, after like a year, figures out Corsair DT. Figure out the Corsair DT, and it made it so that Protoss was actually favored against Zerg after that long. We're talking professional scene, millions of people playing it, Korea's national sport, and it took that long. And I know that is like a very one-off situation.
Everybody was questioning your nerd status earlier. You have got the card back for sure.
Let me ask you this question though, and this comes back to something that Ripper streams about often. Is if it took a player 1 year to figure it out, there is a high degree of likelihood that game design did not create that, knowing that Corsair DV Buzz Lightyear was the counter. Okay, I mean, if you want to beat a Zerg, you get a Buzz Lightyear card. Okay, end of story. That said, it seems improbable to me that game design built that with that counter in mind, and I believe at this stage in the game, now who knows what game design has up their sleeve for the next 3 to 6 months, but I believe as of this moment in the game, even game design could not counter their own creation. And if you cannot counter your own creation, then there is just a fundamental imbalance there, So
I understand what you're saying. I'm just... And just to counter that point, again, I'm playing hardcore, super playing devil's advocate. I'm not saying everything you're bringing up isn't a good point, DJ. But again, I'm not a game designer. When you have so many variables in a game like Star Trek Fleet Command, with how many hundreds of officers are there now? And all of them have different abilities and ships.
170, by the way.
107. Wow. It's highly likely, and I could be wrong, I'm not a game designer, it's highly likely you're going to make something and not fully know every interaction.
Well,
right?
I can tell you, having talked with design leads in your company, that's already happened before in STFC. So,
and I agree with that statement, which is probably why it's a little bit more
I have to sign with
concerning
DJ here.
It's a little bit more concerning if that's a fact, because in my opinion, and I'm not knocking on GD in any way, shape, or form, but in my opinion, any new mechanic should have, it's like the law of physics, right? Like every action should have an equal and opposite reaction. There should be a way to combat something. There's nothing that should just be immortal or God mode in this game. And so I would encourage, and obviously this is a much higher level conversation, and game design might be sitting back chuckling because next month we're going to see it.
Exactly. Like it probably already is planned. I'm just saying there's nothing right now. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and that becomes an issue of implementation and timing, because what happens then is players do feel hopeless about it. And you don't want that feeling within your player base. Like there should be an aspiration to be able to counter that. There should be a method. There should be a method to actually try to be able to combat something, even if it is monetizable content. I mean, I'm not saying that is the devil, but, there should be a mechanic in place that does provide some counterplay.
Yeah, I was saying specifically for when these were released right now, right? I'm not talking about the stuff that is coming down the line, right? And I guess I definitely think that it's to your point, DJ, like, you know, maybe I'm looking at this through rose tinted glasses a little bit, right? Like, I love video games and I think it's super cool when people figure something out, right? Like something that hadn't been done. Oh my gosh, what a cool moment, everyone. Like, it's a revelation that I sort of wasn't thinking about the 6 months to a year of frustration that had in that meantime.
You got it. You got it.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's important to have those moments to make a very dynamic, interesting game and having very unique things that can let people play the way that they want. But I agree, DJ. Like, yeah, like it's no fun when it's just like, okay, here's the God card. Have a nice day.
I mean, and
I definitely think that the other crews that that are being created for the Interceptor and the Explorer, again, it's all supposed to, like, the triangle exists for a reason. I'm not saying the devs haven't thought about what they need to do to make sure that this isn't the end all be all God card. You know what I mean? I hope it didn't sound like that. I was just more saying specifically in what the game is right now as they're released.
And I don't think anybody believes that it will never come. I mean, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think anybody believes that you know, battleships are now the you know, the best ship in the game. There is a battle triangle. That doesn't mean the triangle can't be busted, which is then kind of my point, Echo. The triangle exists. It is a natural advantage, but it can be countered. And when a card comes out that does not have any kind of feasible counter, it does provide, you know, rough feelings. And so why the other strike teams probably need to be implemented a little bit quicker. Yeah. But, you know, I'm all for play and counterplay. I think that's important. I love being able to bust up the triangle. I love taking an auger and beating
your video when you're talking about crewing. And remember the first stream I stopped by and you were showing off crews?
You know, and that's a beautiful piece of this game, because almost any crew build does have something that can fight it. I mean, really, truthfully, it does.
Well, that's what we loved about Rom when it came.
Until now. Until right now. So it just would probably make a little bit more sense for these things to be released in a little bit more of an equilateral fashion. But, you know, obviously a conversation that's well above our pay grade. So.
Well, and just to reiterate, kind of take it a further point, is I loved your StarCraft analogy, but, you know, remember at its core, and I think you being a diehard gamer kind of becomes a little bit of an issue here. We still are playing on a mobile game for most players. And even though it's an extremely active mobile game, like people are still playing it a lot, there's a lot of want it sooner rather than later from the mobile mentality. I mean, look at my videos. What videos typically in a month do I have with the most views? Every time I do DJ's favorite thing, give away the answers to scramble communications, people fly. And
well,
I love
puzzles.
That.
Most people hate puzzles.
Well, this just comes down to, I love it. Y'all love it. We all talk about how great it was to have the breakdown Klingon code.
Strange New Cipher was awesome. You know,
even DJ left you on that one. Like, I love the idea. I think it's too much because it's a mobile game and people.
I like turtles.
Quicker. Yeah, it's just, even DJ was like, yeah, it was a cool idea, but horrible. He hated it. So.
No, let me rephrase. And this is exactly what I said. When a puzzle becomes so complicated that you actually have to reference outside of the game is where you start to lose people in a mobile game, right? Like if this were a strictly PC or console-based game, you have a little bit more latitude with that. But in a mobile game, listen, trivia,
a mobile game of old people too.
I don't think it's fair to put mobile game in its own box. Like, mobile gaming 10 years ago, like, yeah, sure, Flappy Bird and stuff like that, Candy Crush, but like, we're talking games that are rivaling PC games on a mobile device these days.
It's a deep MMO, and I get that, but you can't remember where you started. You can't forget your origins, man. Your origins are, this is a mobile game. And when you require the assistance of out-of-the-game resources, that's where you...
Switch a mobile game?
No.
Well, I don't know. Does it make me go to Google and download 16th century ciphers?
No, it doesn't.
I mean, there's the thing. I mean, literally, you had to use Google. If you were going to solve this puzzle, you had to use Google. All right. That to me is not a requirement that should exist inside. Really, I mean, truthfully, I know that it probably is more accepted in other types of games, but if I have to use an outside resource, that begins to trouble me a little bit. That's why I like the trivia. That's why I like the scramble communications where I'm using game knowledge. Okay, when I'm using game knowledge or something in Star Trek lore like trivia or officer metas, when I'm using that stuff that requires on knowledge of the product I'm actually using, great. All right, and even though I like the Klingon translation, because I had a Klingon dictionary, if that was probably borderline for a lot of players. When you require the use of an outside resource, it becomes a little bit more challenging to players.
I totally understand where you're coming from.
Not that I don't love the creativity. I love the creativity.
Games and
love the creativity.
And mobile games, they all have sort of like, okay, if I play this game on this device, it's X amount of time investment, and I'm expecting Y experience. I understand that. And the only thing, and this is, maybe I am a delusional gamer, and you know what? I'm okay with that, right? Me personally, I love video games. I think that they're the most amazing, beautiful thing that's ever happened to me in my life. Seriously, I'll just say that. I don't care. I just think that putting any game in a box of what it should and shouldn't be based on where it's from hinders progression and trying new things.
And
That's
let me
only
rephrase.
thing I'm saying. And no, I totally understand what you're saying, DJ. I
admire
do.
the creativity.
Like to limit anything.
I admire the creativity in this. But like Rev said, I have always loved the puzzles. I have always chastised Rev for giving the answers. I love those types of puzzle events. Even the Cypher event was, you saw me struggling. I came to you and was like, dude, I cannot for the life of me figure out this Cypher. I mean, even when people were giving me the answers, then I was trying to say, okay, how did we develop the answer?
Yeah.
And I still couldn't figure it out. So that was just one that probably bordered, for me, it was borderline too complicated. That could be for me personally as a player. Okay, I acknowledge that.
I think you give a lot of great points. Like, I'm not trying to argue that. Like, and maybe that was something that like is for a mobile game like 10 years down the line. Like it was too much too soon. Like,
well, it was
example of that. Running up the hill.
Listen, it certainly provided
as well in the 80s as it was received. Today
it was certainly a level of complexity that really design wise was beautiful. Like the Arc Runner who wrote that. It is pure genius. I'm not taking anything away from it. The creativity that went into that event was absolutely astounding. I give him a 100% A++ for developing it. I just feel like it might have been a step too far as complexity for me as a player to really be able to dive into. That's all. I love the event. Okay,
these are all
just complicated.
These are all totally fair points. I just love playing devil's advocate, and I was not a mobile gamer.
Release the Buzz Lightyear card. All will be well, guys. I am gonna go. Rev, I've been here way too long. Sorry for all the time. Can we get Rev a level 5 hype train real quick before we go? Because I mean, for an hour and 22 minutes, like it's just been really boring old white dudes talking. So
first of all, I don't qualify for part of that. Second of all. Actually, wait. Me and Eco are both like 10 years younger than you. What are you talking about?
Oh, God. All right, just the biddy. Do the biddies. Do some
Thank you,
level 5.
Thank you, DJ, as always, for coming and chatting with me.
Always,
they do
always
want us
love
to
you
do
guys.
A Faith of the Heart duet.
Hide the money, y'all. There's poor people around.
Oh God! I have started something. I cannot control. The cat is out of the bag. No pun intended. But I can't put that away. That is going to haunt me forever.
You can't do it.
Hide the money, y'all.
Embrace it, Grizzly. Thank you.
I may or may not have actually doubled down on the podcast yesterday. If you guys want to fast forward,
I haven't gotten listened to it yet.
Oh God, it's probably about 3 hours in.
So about
right as we're getting ready to. No, right as we're getting ready to wrap up, probably in the last 30 minutes. I actually may or may not have actually sung again on the podcast, the Enterprise theme song. So, if you want to go check that out, I would appreciate the downloads. Thank you
So
so
would
very
you
much.
go ahead and say it's the best theme song in track?
Absolutely not, Rev. The reason I sing it is because it's the worst It's the worst, and
Oh,
me
God.
singing it makes it worse. All right, when you
Speaking of music,
when
you
you
saw
think-
our social post today, DJ, right? Any ideas?
I mean, yeah, I've got ideas. Yeah. Listen, if you're going, let me just say this. Since I'm the radio guy and I'm the music guy and I'm the engineering audio guy, if you're going to take something as beautiful and as much a masterpiece as the Deep Space Nine theme song is, do not bastardize it with keyboard synth. Okay, that's just me. That's just my opinion. I don't know if anybody else shares it. Come on, man. Reverence, honor, respect. Okay. Oh God, that was
He's
such
a millennial. He watches Lower Decks. He doesn't have that.
terrible.
But you're saying
audio clip.
you think it's the Deep Space Nine soundtrack is what I'm hearing.
No, it's not the Deep Space Nine soundtrack. It's some high schooler in his basement with a MIDI keyboard trying to learn is what it is. Okay. That's what it is.
Jesus, it's a scrambled communication, DJ.
DJ, did you know
All
Eco
right.
designed that himself?
I am so sorry to rain on your parade. It's the most awful thing. It's the most awful
didn't
thing I've ever heard.
actually.
Okay.
Poor people around.
Thank
It's
you, Evil
terrible.
Dragonfly.
More biddies. Gifted subs. Level 5. Where are we at, Rev? Level 2, level 3?
Yeah, 2.5. Do you have a hint that you want to give away?
You know, listen, I don't know that Echo's actually heard this hint yet, so I don't know if I want to give it because it's probably completely unsanctioned. I will simply
It's
say
on
this,
my
Rev.
channel. It's okay.
Rev, I am a huge channel. I'm a
You
huge
are a
advocate.
huge channel.
I am a huge advocate of strategically spending resources. And here about 2 years ago, I released a YouTube video into this game about officer progression for Ops 20 through 40 at the time, which was, daggone near the cap in the game.
Mhm.
It talked all about sourcing transporter patterns by using faction credits to convert into faction recruit tokens.
Yeah.
And all I would simply say to your audience tonight is that it is time to pause. It is time to pause so that you may reevaluate that path in the coming days as to what will continue to be relevant to you as a player. And it could still be the original path. It could still be transporter patterns. Maybe you're not done with 6 of 11. Absolutely could still be that the original path is the way that you decide to stick. But it is also possible that a new path could present. And I would just simply recommend to players engaged in that loop to pause for just a few minutes and see what new options become available.
Vernon Crows, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. I wonder what that could be referring to. I do have these cool paw hands, though. Do you have paw hands?
Of course, I'm a cat.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have mine.
Just saying.
I mean, there's nothing better than fingerless gloves, except fingerless gloves that are paws.
Yes, because opposable thumbs and all that jazz. Echo, are you going to send me a nasty PM for giving players that little bit of insight into a possibly game-changing officer sourcing change that's coming?
Jeez, get
Rev,
even more specific with the hint. Why don't you?
Yeah, now you just got even more. It's fine.
Jeez, I don't even push that far.
What's wrong with you?
This is what happens when you don't.
Video.
Oh my god!
I
You
literally
take
just
away
referenced
his
a video
rhymes
about
and look what
officer
happens.
progression. Officer progression in this game. And you know what? Listen, here's what's beautiful about it. We talk about officer progression all the time. We talk about sourcing, Rev. And I am just so flipping excited that Scopely is preparing to implement probably one of the most drastic officer sourcing plans that they've ever implemented. And I'm really excited to see it. I'm really excited to share it with you guys. And so there you go. All right. I don't think that's too much. I think it's praiseworthy. Scopely has heard your feedback, and officer sourcing is about to look a lot different.
Just keep going. Just go ahead and tell them who's in the list. Why don't you? Just go ahead.
Just tell them exactly what to do, DJ.
All right, since Echo,
will they be able to source cards they've never done before?
I'm kidding.
Somebody clip that because I'll use it later in my defense. How about we talk about, Echo? How about we talk about previously paywalled officers?
Nope. How about we talk about nothing else, DJ?
So you don't want me to mention the
Nope.
one guy?
Sure don't.
What about that other guy? That one.
I'm just goofing.
Okay, but surely this other card we can talk about.
Oh,
What
TJ,
about that
I'm going to
group
have a
of
heart
cars
attack.
that came out that worked against that other group?
I mean, there's that group that works with this other group, and this other guy who has probably like.
Both you guys are getting your NDAs taken away. So you know.
I said nothing.
I said nothing either.
All right, DJ, are you bouncing or no?
I mean, if you're going to let me tell who's in the officer class.
No, that's it. No more hits.
I know, DJ. I've got one for you. I know how you
please.
can do it.
People round.
I'm dying to say something.
Okay.
No more hits.
With your broke ass.
An officer that's coming out, tell me who they look like from somebody who works at Scopely.
No. No.
Listen, if
All right,
only
anyways.
if only everybody could be as cool as Echo and actually get his own officer card released in the game. I mean, that would be exciting, right? I want my own officer card. DJ Aoki got one. I mean, you got the first part right. DJ, I mean, come on. I certainly don't. I have not nearly a good enough goatee for that.
God. Oh,
My,
right.
my goatee is not as good.
I am actually 36 minutes past dinner time. So regardless of what you two lovely individuals do, I gotta bounce.
The
So-
Jeopardy came on 36 minutes ago. I got to go.
wow.
Wheel of Fortune starts in 24 minutes, and I'm very upset that I'm missing it.
It
So,
plays this
man.
late?
I mean, I still have to pop open my can of Ensure, take my vitamins, okay?
Bro, I
Gotta-
took mine when I was on stream.
Theo, I
Yeah.
just want to point out that Rev should not be murdered. Rev did nothing. Rev did not push any boundaries, surprisingly, tonight. DJ.
I push
I'll
no boundaries.
I'll wait until your video comes out tomorrow and we'll reassess.
I push no boundaries.
You're both under the microscope. I'm assigning special agents to monitor all of your content for the next
okay.
month.
What else is new? All right,
Yeah.
next.
Okay.
I just want to say thanks, guys, for having a really, really fun conversation with me and letting me even be here. It means a lot.
Are we at level 5 yet? For the love of God.
We are at
Yes.
84%,
Well, 84%.
to level 5 with 10 seconds
Come on,
left.
come on. That's gonna. Oh, come on, somebody. That's gonna take like 1,000 biddies, and you're done. Come on, quick. Jeez.
Thanks, DJ.
I'm in Discord. I can't do it, or I would do it.
Oh,
It's gonna be too late by the time I switch over
Heavy
to Twitch.
Tater, thank you for the hydrate. I appreciate it.
Hydrates
good
don't
show.
build hype trains.
It's okay. Look here. If they want to donate, I'll have them the donate link. Eco, thank you for gifting a sub to
There's
Hellcat.
people round.
It was a good episode. We talked. We got a lot of good thoughts out. We got a lot of good feedback. But honestly, I just think that people enjoy the back and forth. We've held 300 people for almost 3 hours. So
saying everything I say is going to be something that people agree with. I just love video games. And I love Trek. And I love this game.
even though you've
And-
never watched DS9.
Never watched DS9.
Oh my God,
I
dude.
heard I'm not missing out on
Exactly,
much.
DJ.
I heard I'm not missing out on much.
Oh,
The hell? What?
But
It's the second best Trek that exists.
arguably
no,
the
it
first-
goes Voyager.
maybe-
It goes TNG then Voyager. How can anything be better
Oh my
than that?
God.
Whoa. Back it up, son. Back it up, Terry. Oh,
So you're
God,
gonna say
Terry.
Lower Decks
How
is
did it
top 3 at
reverse?
least?
Back it up, Terry.
You know
Back
what?
it up.
I will accept Lower Decks in your top 3 if Voyager's in the dirt under a rock somewhere.
No, that's number 1.
See, I'm gonna go TNG seasons 3+. And then I'm gonna go Strange New Worlds, and then I'm gonna go DS9.
I would
You
probably
like Strange
go-
New Worlds that much, huh, DJ?
If
I think it was phenomenal. I think it's so good.
If we're allowed
so
to
good.
ignore bad seasons, then DS9 to me is peak Trek. At its best, it's the best Star Trek. At its best. Then it's a dirty tie between Strange New Worlds and The Next Generation. And I'll be honest, the more I've gone back and rewatched TNG, even those amazing episodes and great seasons, not a single season of TNG for me, and I realized that they were longer, was as good as season 1 of Strange New Worlds. So for that reason,
Wow, really?
I grew up on TNG. I've got pictures of me as a babe looking at a boob tube TV.
I know, I saw it. I saw
But
it.
Look how big it
the
is.
peak DS9 for me. Peak.
That's
If
2
we're just judging
inches.
about what was the
Look how
best
big
at
it
its
is.
peak, DS9,
That's
arguably
2
Strange New
inches.
Worlds, which is
Look how-
unarguably the best first season of Star Trek ever, Even if you don't think that it's better,
hands down,
it's the best
hands down.
first season of Trek ever.
You take all the season ones from every property ever, hands down, Rev. I agree with you 100%. Best season one of all time.
Wow. So you're saying that Trek is only getting better as time goes on?
Well, in some ways,
if you take Voyager out of that and you take Discovery out of that, then sure, yeah, maybe.
You missed Enterprise too.
I'd rather watch Discovery than Enterprise or Voyager.
Enterprise doesn't count. It did not have a symphonic theme, therefore it's excluded from the count.
What?
It's the only Trek without a symphonic theme, therefore it is unilaterally excluded.
Wow.
Rev, I agree with your face currently. Anyways, I'm gonna jump, but
seriously, you guys liked Enterprise? Oh God, what trash!
No, we're just saying it.
Well,
we include it when we're looking at our lists.
Here's one for you, DJ. What is
if you include it as to, if I'm going to take the DVD insert out of the box set and wipe my butt with it, then sure, yeah, it can count.
What does Oliver think of Prodigy?
What does Oliver think of what?
Prodigy.
You know, he watches it with me, but I don't think he actually understands it fully. He doesn't understand how it ties into Trek, and he doesn't understand why Daddy might have teared up during the Kobayashi Maru episode. Because, like, wow, right? If you haven't watched Prodigy, the Kobayashi Maru, what is that? It's episode 4, hands down the best episode of Prodigy. Best episode of Prodigy. Watch Kobayashi Maru. It might make you cry, big old man tears. That was a great episode. I don't think Oliver understands why I cried so much during that episode. 6. Oh, well, I don't know the numbers, just the name, the episode, like that. You got to watch that one. That was so good, and it tied in so many different pieces of lore and so many different properties that it all tied together. It was just beautiful. It was it's beautiful. I'm gonna go watch it again after I have mine short.
I'm leaving now. Goodbye.
Bye.
I appreciate all of you guys. Thanks for everything. Rev, thank you for letting me come in here and like hijack your stream, essentially.
I think we all had fun. It was good.
No, I had a great time. And yeah, it means a lot. I know that not everybody agrees with everything I say, but I'm glad that we can have like an honest discussion about thoughts, feelings, play devil's advocate, do all these things and, just be humans. I think that's really, really cool. Even, chat was there as well. It's great.
I'm a cat.
Meow.
Meow. All right. I'll take care. I'm sure we'll talk soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye, you too. All right, that was fun. We haven't done that in a while.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.